Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about shin splints and strength exercises.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone RunDisney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
Okay, so typically I talk about knee problems or Achilles problems, but really it's all common running injuries. I just tend to talk about the most common ones the most often. Today I'm talking about shin splints. They're very common, and I'm talking about them today because my shin hurts. So I am signed up for Chills and Thrills, and if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw that I'm also most likely going to sign up for Wine and Dine 2-course challenge because I love Olaf, and the 10K theme is Olaf. And if I'm already there, I might as well do the half marathon and get coast to coast. So this was my thinking. So right now, definitely signed up for Chills and Thrills. When this podcast episode comes out, it will be February 4th, and that is when Wine and Dine Club runDisney registration is. And then next week will be Wine and Dine general registration. So I will probably try my luck and hopefully get in, to be determined. But because I'm training for Chills and Thrills, and you're probably thinking, but Dr. Allie, it's February. You're not training for that yet. Technically correct. However, if you've been in this world for any length of time, you know about the phases of a running journey. We have our build phase, training phase, taper phase, race phase, and then rest and recovery phase. So if we think about that and we're doing something, then we're kind of training. So that's what I'm thinking about. I'm in the build phase right now. So what that means is I am building strength, I am building speed, and I'm building up my endurance. It's been a while since I was actively running. Life got lifey. It happens. I regularly walk, but it's really been since like Halloween time frame that I've actually ran. Life got in the way. And really, that's not a problem because I stay active with my walking. I walk at least 2.25 miles multiple days a week and usually have a 3 mile or like a 5K distance long walk every week. So by maintaining that, I can jump into base building pretty quickly because the way I do it is base building, you're building up to being able to run a 5K. So either from zero, not being able to do any running, or from residual running that you have or residual walking that you have. When possible, I do recommend that you continue walking. So if you have downloaded any of my free training plans, you'll see that I include 2, sometimes 3 weeks of training after your race. And those 2 to 3 weeks include walking and build up to running. So you just ran Dumbo. If you ran Dumbo, you just did it. And so these next 2 weeks include 3 to 4 walks and some cross training. And then next Thursday, February 13th, will be your first easy run. Now, I should note that I had a typo on one of my training plans. I just became aware of it recently. You may have that Thursday is like walk 3 miles. That's a typo. That Thursday, February 13th, that second Thursday after race day, that should be an easy 30 to 45 minutes, depending on what race you just came off of. So if it was Dumbo or the half marathon at Disneyland, that should be an easy 30 minutes. That is the first run. So I do this in particular so that A, you don't get burnt out from running, and B, you don't get injured, and C, you don't have to start from zero. The majority of my training plans, actually all of them except for the 5K training plan, they all start at a 5K. So if you download my free training plans, it assumes that you can run a 5K pain-free. If you can't, no problem. That's where the 0 to 5K training plan comes into play, or base building. They follow the same pattern. I use the 0 to 5K training plan for somebody training for a 5K. I use the base building training plan for somebody who is going to be training for a longer distance race, 10K, 10 miler, half marathon, full marathon. I use that as a base builder to get you up to the first week of your training plan. So for me right now, I'm base building. I'm building up my strength, I'm building up my speed, and I'm building up my base miles so that when training for Chills and Thrills comes up, which for my training plan will be May 4th, I'm still on the early side, but I know life is going to get lifey for me in the next couple of weeks. So I have factored that in where I can take a little bit more time to rest and recover. Or just take time off, not even rest and recover, because I don't anticipate racing and I don't anticipate getting injured, but I know life is going to get lifey. So I am adding in a couple extra weeks. So I have been base building. This is week 3 of it. I did my long run yesterday and it was beautiful outside here in Las Vegas. It was 75 degrees where I live. It was 80 degrees in the valley. The valley tends to be warmer because it's a valley, so it just gets warmer. And I live closer to the mountains, not in the mountains, but closer. So it's a couple of degrees cooler where I live. Now, in July, when it's 120 degrees and my house is 117, it really doesn't make a big difference. But right now, 75 versus 80, that's quite nice. But I ran outside, and the past couple of weeks leading up to it, I've been on the treadmill. So I ran outside, and my plan that I made and I followed was walk 1.1 miles, run 1.51 miles, walk 1.1 miles. And I did that outside, and it was kind of like a paced walking. I should double check here. I'll pull out my phone and see what my pace was. And if you don't know, paced walking means it's not leisurely. So you're putting in some oomph, you're putting in some effort. It's not necessarily full uh it's not race pace or anything, but it's not a safari with Levi. It's not a leisurely stroll. This has some oomph to it. So my pace was 18 minutes and 56 seconds for the first 1.1 miles. So that's not super fast, but I was putting in effort. My heart rate got up to 107. So not crazy. Usually I aim for my heart rate after my warm up to be 100. So that was still more elevated than that. And then the last 1.1 miles, my pace was 18 minutes and 16 seconds per mile, and my heart rate got up to 118. So not crazy. Where was I going with this? Oh, okay. So walked the 1.1, run 1.51, walk 1.1. During the run portion, so I run straight through during that portion right now. That could change when I'm actively training for a race. I typically do a run walk, different than the typical run walk method. I do my own variation on it, mainly because I do it just because that's what I like to do. I don't like to run straight through all of the time. So I tend to do run half a mile, walk half a mile, or run 3/4 of a mile, walk a quarter of a mile, or if I'm really not feeling it that day, run half a mile, walk a mile to a mile and a half if I'm really not feeling it, and that's okay. But my goal was to stay at my easy pace. And based on my testing a couple of weeks ago, if you heard that episode a couple of weeks ago, I tested my speed. This is what I am doing with all of my clients in base building and beginning of training phases. We test for sure what your paces should be. Sometimes, depending on the person, sometimes we just go through what previous paces have been. I am now finding, after doing that for years, I have found that because most of my runners at some point use a treadmill, it's so easy to test pace on a treadmill. It's not super easy to test pace, I have found, this is my personal and professional opinion, on just a regular road. If you can go to a track, that's great. We can't always go to a track. But so now I'm kind of changing things up and having more and more and more of my runners test for sure instead of basing it off of averages and history and things like that. It also actually takes a little less time for us to test the pace than to go through all of the paces. So, anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent. But so I tested my paces a couple of weeks ago, and my easy run pace is 12 minutes per mile right now on the treadmill. So, my aim was for that yesterday 12 minutes per mile. I did 11 minutes and 53 seconds averaging. So I think that's pretty spot on. That's pretty good. And I will say it felt so much harder than it does on the treadmill. And some of that is going to be because it included some uphill. It was not completely flat. And there are so many other factors around. Cars driving by, making sure I'm not getting hit. There are so many instances where I have to cross a crosswalk that multiple crosswalks that I've almost gotten hit by a car. So I am very particular at those crosswalks, either avoiding them completely or being very careful around them. So that is a factor. And just like overall noises, being aware of my surroundings, all of these things elevate my heart rate. When my heart rate and yours, I say mine because it was my personal experience, but this goes for you too. When your heart rate is already elevated, that makes things feel harder. So, 12 miles an hour on the treadmill, I have no hill. I am in my own safe space. Any noise I hear, it's Levi barking at, the garbage truck down the street or whatever it is, snoring, making a grumbling noise because I'm making too much noise on the treadmill, things like that. But my heart rate's not going to get as elevated because I'm in my safe space. So it's not going to feel as hard. I'm sure there are other reasons to why running outside feels harder. These are big ones that I noticed. So that's why I talked about it. So it felt harder. I kept watching my Apple Watch. I had to stay in tune, and I do recommend you do this. Stay in tune with your watch to make sure that you're staying at that pace. I almost slowed down because it felt hard. And I was like, well, it is 12 minutes per mile. And at this point, I was at 12:16 minutes per mile. So I almost slowed down and was like, oh, well, maybe I should do 13. I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to try it. And I could do it. I could hold that pace. And my shin didn't bother me. I'm going back to the shin splints that I started talking about in the beginning. My shins didn't bother me then. It wasn't until later in the day and this morning that my left shin, only my left shin started bugging me. Is it shin splints? No, it's not shin splints. One, because shin splints doesn't happen from a singular activity. It's going to be over time, and you're going to notice a little bit one day, and a little bit another day, and a little bit another day, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then it's not going to go away. So, could this turn into shin splints? Yes. It's not right now, though. And then, so with that in mind, I obviously want to prevent that from happening. So many of my runners, many of my audience will DM me or ask me, what strength exercises can I do to heal my shin splints? And I understand what they're asking. It's not quite that way. I don't want to say not quite that simple. It's not that the strength exercises will heal the shin splints or the strength exercises alone, because more strength exercises can actually make it worse. So I talked the other day in another podcast episode that more strength exercises can actually cause more problems and more injury. I don't want to avoid strength exercises completely, but I do want to test it. So today was a cross training day and strength exercises. So I walked to the gym in my community so that I could use heavy weights. I only have so much weight here at home. I don't like strength exercises. I do them because it's good for me and I want to be able to run for years and years and years to come, but I don't like doing it. So I don't really invest a ton of money into the strength exercise equipment that I have at home. But I do have a community gym that's pretty small and usually not very many people there. So I I just go there. They have it all. I can go do it there. And so went to the gym, did my heavy lifting. I used machines and I specifically went to the gym instead of using weights at and elastics and stuff at home because I didn't want to do it. So if I go and do it, it's like, okay, well, I can use the machines, I can get it done. I don't really have to think about it and just get it done. So leg press. Actually, that's the only machine I used now that I think about it. Whatever. Leg press, then I did deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, Bulgarian split squats, heel raises, double leg heel raises, my three-way heel raises, my single leg heel raises, and bridging with my back on the bench with a weight over my hips. So I did all of those. I was going to do lateral leg stuff, so hip abduction with an elastic, with the weight, the cable machine, but there was a guy using it and the I didn't want to wait. And also the machine, it was one of the cable machines, and it was actually too high for me to get leverage to move the machine to the proper location. So I just said, I'm not going to do it. I went home and used my black elastic for that exercise. And that was challenging. Like I could only do like six reps or so. So that was heavy weight for me. And then I also did strength exercises for my shins. So I did dorsiflexion, I did inversion, and I did eversion. So those are the different directions. So dorsiflexion is pulling your toes towards your nose, inversion is pulling your toes towards your other foot, and eversion is pulling your toes away from your other foot. As I was doing this, I'm testing, okay, is this a muscular problem? Because shin splints is a muscular problem. You can have anterior or you can have posterior shin splints depending on which muscle is affected. So your anterior tibialis is affected, posterior tibialis is affected, and it's micro tearing of the muscle coming off the bone. So if it's shin splints, stretching it hurts, and strength exercises directly affecting that muscle hurts. That's how we know whether if it's a muscle or a tendon injury or something else. Today, stretching didn't hurt it. Strength exercises directly for the muscles did not hurt it. It's not a micro tearing muscle injury. It bothers me when I walk, when I put weight through it, and it bothers me when I touch it. It's sensitive at those times. Like I can feel it sitting here right now because I'm sitting cross-legged and my heel of my other foot is touching my shin. I can feel it. And so I took my massage stick, my magic stick, and massaged over it, and that recreated the sensitivity directly. Strength exercise did not bother it and stretching did not bother it. It did not recreate the symptoms directly. So it's a sensitivity issue. There's inflammation in there because I ran differently yesterday. I didn't run faster. I did run a little bit uphill. I didn't run significantly more, 10% more than I had the week before. It's a sensitivity thing. This can happen. It's not shin splints for me. My treatment, yes, I did the strength exercises because strength exercises will help me better tolerate the running in the future. but it's not going to heal my shin splints that I don't have, but the potential for shin splints right now, because that's not the issue. So I need to gently massage it to get some circulation directly there. And I'm going to take a hot Epsom salt bath. Some people like cold. If you've been listening, you know I don't like cold. I don't tolerate cold. I have a a reaction to cold. I have cold urticaria, which means that I break out in hives if I get too cold or I use ice or an ice bath or something too long. So, does that sound miserable to you? It is. So I avoid it, but I use heat instead. Now, I have to be careful because if I go too hot, I also break out in hives. So, I find the nice little balance of a nice warm, almost hot Epsom salt bath. And that will help my inflammation. And I should feel better in 24 to 36 hours. And I'll make sure I keep doing it. And I make sure now I know that running outside is different for my body, which I already knew. Now I'm going to make sure that even if it didn't feel like a super hard run, I'm going to make sure I go and do my foam roller or my massage stick because foam rolling your shin is really awkward. So I prefer the handheld magic stick and take a hot Epsom salt bath as preventative measures to prevent that inflammation from really setting in and making it so that I feel comfortable. Now, somebody might say, "Well, what about your shoes?" I wore the exact same shoes on the treadmill and outside, not the shoes. However, when I took Levi for a walk today, I was wearing my Uggs and I felt it. And then when I went for my walk and went to the gym, I changed into my on clouds and I didn't feel it as much. Does that mean I shouldn't be wearing my Uggs? No, because Uggs for me normally are fine. I usually have no problem with my feet, no problem with my shins. So, what was the difference? The difference was yesterday I ran outside instead of on the treadmill like I have been the past couple of weeks. And I didn't take my hot Epsom salt bath yesterday. Yesterday was a shit show. So, I ended up running. I, sorry, Levi is grumbling right now because something happened outside. I don't know. So I ended up running at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon instead of my normal morning. So we already know that's all thrown off. But I also got home when Royal got home. So then we needed to do the dad's home zoomies with Levi. And then I needed to stretch. And by that time, it was dinner time. I didn't do it. I took a quick shower. I didn't take a hot Epsom salt bath. I also, didn't have any of the signals to say like take one right now. But this is one of the reasons why I do my run earlier in the day. So then other bits of life don't get in the way. Had I done it earlier, I probably would have gone and done the hot Epsom salt bath right away. Strength exercises are important, don't get me wrong. I have a whole program. I have whole programs related to strength exercises. However, we need to be aware of when they fix things, when they prevent things, and when to use them so that we use them appropriately. I don't want you to do all of these strength exercises and think, "Oh, well, it's not working for me. This isn't meant for me. I need to stop running. I need to stop strength exercises." Whatever other thoughts. Those are thoughts previous clients have thought where they thought that because they keep getting injured, but they're doing the strength exercises that it's this just isn't meant for them. Could be the wrong strength exercises, could be too little or too much, not the right amount. So not the right ones, not the right amount, or not for the right reason. So you be mindful of that. When in doubt, reach out to a professional who can go through those things with you. That's what we go through in Stronger, Faster, Finisher. I go through it with my one-on-one clients. We go through what are the symptoms, when are you having it, what are like what are you feeling, and how long after and many other questions to figure out, is this a muscle problem? Is this a ligament problem? Is this a bone problem? I'm not necessarily diagnosing you, but using that information with my history of being a physical therapist and knowing, okay, here's what strength exercises you should do so that you don't re aggravate the problem and you can prevent it from getting worse and preventing it from happening again in the future. And here are some recovery techniques that work for that type of problem to make it feel better and stop happening as well. Because strength exercises are really crummy at healing pain. That's what recovery techniques, massage, temperature based, so the hot or the cold, things like that, do to help make that inflammation and that pain go away. For the runners that want to finish their next Run Disney race stronger and faster so you stop getting injured, you beat the balloon ladies, and you cross the finish line, I invite you to check out my newest program, Stronger, Faster, Finisher. Get the workouts you need to build speed, stamina, and strength. If that sounds like something you're looking for your next race, visit the link in the show notes to learn more. As always, thanks so much for listening. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.